I don't really play fancy shit when I'm busking anyway. I leave that to the wankers. A good day's busking should start off with no money at all.
Nerves and nervousness are other is another.
You should be hungry for it, basically. You need some fire in your belly.
If you do have to drink before you play a show, it's okay, but always try to make sure you're not as drunk as the people in the crowd. You have to be the puppet master, and you don't want the people in the crowd to be more on form than you are. Otherwise, they will heckle you and they will win.
If you do have any money, you need to sacrifice it to the busking god. Always start off with a few silver coins. It's like throwing back the first fish. I will explain the purpose of this channel. I have only the vaguest idea why I am doing this, but I will figure out why soon enough. I will explain the purpose of this video and this channel. The majority of people who burn incense sticks in houses like this, character houses, is to conceal the smell of marijuana. I will explain the purpose of this video and this channel later on, but until then, buckle up for the adventure of a lifetime. I am not going to bother even backing up this claim with statistics. I don't really play fancy shit when I'm busking anyway. It doesn't really get you any more money as far as I can tell. People with a massive fuzz box playing Jimi Hendrix or Jimmy Page. I mean, that's all well and good. I mean, they're often very good players, but when you're busking, a much better objective is to get people singing along while they're drunk to very simple songs that they recognize. That's where the money's at. It's all well and good to have people admiring you for your technical ability or your Mixolydian scales, but really what they want is to show that they recognize the song you're playing and to be able to sing along in front of their girlfriend or their boyfriend or their friends in general. And they want to be able to get it on Instagram, and they want to get they want to send a video back to their friends in the UK or Prague or wherever the hell it happens to be. You're essentially providing their ego with a service. It's not so much about you, it's about them. And birthdays are wonderful. If you can sing them happy birthday, they will give you $20 on the spot, I promise. Today we will be visiting some graves.
I do enjoy being in the graveyard. Even when it is raining.
Doing some local research, incorporating our shadow self, doing some busking, formulating some new philosophies, and coining some new terminology. It's going to be exciting. Now, a brief lesson about carrying things when you're busking, carrying heavy things like speakers. Now, if you play this kind of shit, or then you've got to protect your right hand, or the hand that does this. If you're a southpaw, you'll use this hand. Not necessarily. But if you're using a flat pick, it doesn't matter so much. and so on, because you're only using your thumb and your index finger, so it doesn't matter if you stretch the tendons so much. But you have to protect your left hand because you need to press the strings down. And if you've been carrying a heavy speaker for half an hour, then you'll stretch the tendons and you won't be able to press the strings down. And you really do notice that. And so that basically means you can only play really simple chords and you can't do all this fancy shit. Testing. Hello. So my name's Yell and I'm an alcoholic. Hi, Yell. I'll explain my name later. It's a pseudonym. So I basically hit what people refer to as rock bottom a few months ago, and I booked myself into a detox in hospital. I probably could have just weaned down off the amount of alcohol I was drinking, but I wanted to get it done quick smart because I had big fancy ideas about resetting my life and starting afresh. And this is why I'm doing a video on busking, because when you drink away all the money you have, and when buying alcohol becomes the only reason you want to make money, and you end up with no money at all even to buy alcohol, then you really need to either win the lottery or rob a bank, which you can't do because you've already pawned all of your bows and arrows, I guess, and you need to reset your life. Then you need to learn how to hustle again from scratch, unless you want to go back to full-time work. And I didn't particularly want to go back to the town where I was living, where I had my full-time job that I'd been working at for 7 years. I wanted to escape town and start again. Drinking was only one of the problems. It was like a cure and a problem at the same time. So in this video I am hoping to try to convey how I have been starting from scratch again, how I've been making money day by day and surviving using the humble skills of a humble busker to get by. It can be done. If you are not a musician, hopefully this is at least interesting, and if it isn't interesting, then well, just go elsewhere. Do something else with your precious time. Don't leave any mean comments because that'll hurt my feelings. So I started busking a long time ago, probably when I first went to university. I had a job at night time which helped me pay the rent, but because I started smoking cigarettes, I smoked away all of the money I would otherwise have spent on food. And so I had to make extra money. So I took my guitar out onto Queen Street in Auckland, and when I wasn't at lectures or I wasn't working, I would play country music and music from the 50s and the 60s, basically standard bangers. And there was a gap in the market, you might say, because the majority of people who were out there busking were playing more modern music from the 90s and the early 2000s. They were playing Jack Johnson and stuff like that, Ben Harper, all of those guys that when a 10-year-old wants to learn the guitar, they'll ask how to play that song. And yeah, I never really liked that kind of stuff. I still don't like it. But having said that, it does make money playing those kind of songs. But I decided to fill the gap in the market where, as far as country music was concerned, I played country songs and western songs. Now the difference is, of course, that when they talk about country and western, the western part, as far as I understand it, is outlaw ballads, gunfighter ballads, Marty Robbins and that kind of thing. People like that stuff. It's the novelty of it. So as far as resetting things go, I figured I would learn from other people who have no money and no place to stay, and I'll start from there because you see a lot of people walking around who claim to be homeless. Some of them are homeless, but regardless, somehow they're surviving. So I figured, where do they go to eat? Where do they find shelter? It's like the Paul Simon song, "The Boxer," um, seeking out the something shelters where the ragged people go, looking for the places only they would know. That kind of thing. And for me, it was an exciting adventure. I went down to Hamilton when I first escaped where I was living, and from Hamilton, when I booked myself out of the care of the doctors and the people who do the monitoring and all of that other fancy stuff when you're going through a detox to make sure you don't swallow your tongue and die. When I left their care voluntarily, because I put myself into care, I could take myself out of care any time. Some of them, if they had their way, they would have probably wanted me to stay, and some of them didn't really think I needed to be there to begin with. It was some kind of weird moral continuum on which I found myself, and in which part that's too convoluted. Yeah. Anyway, so I caught a bus to the city I am staying in now, and I didn't have a place to stay, but through my friends and my brother, I found a place to live reasonably quickly, and this is my room now. And I am glad that it is in walking distance to the biggest streets in the city where a person can go busking. So that's what I do on the weekends. The good thing about busking is that it means you are unlikely to starve if you put in the hours. It may take you all day to get $10, but having said that, if the fishing is good, you can make $50 just playing I Fought the Law. That happened to us last night. So I'm going to throw out what I believe to be some useful tips about busking and some other ideas that I will come up with along the way. I look forward to reading your comments in the comment section if they are helpful, pertinent, and or relevant. And if anybody has any questions about busking or playing live music, or about doing it sober when they would otherwise be drinking, then I would love to carry on a conversation about it. There are lots of different forms of busking out there on the street. Spare changing, busking. You don't have to do it with music. You can stand there in. There's one guy down the road. If you throw $1 or some cash into his container, he will move his arm, and he will stay there all day, and he'll eventually complete a whole movement, but he only moves when you throw the coins in. It's genius, really. And but it must be hard work, of course, because if he gets an itchy ass, then he's going to lose out on a lot of income. And there are people who do juggling, fire juggling. That's a really dangerous job. Those guys don't get enough credit. They often have accidents. And the best part about busking, is that you build up an honor among buskers. There's an honor there. You don't invade another busker's territory. Whoever gets there first, it's first in, first served, basically. But there is a lot of camaraderie there. There have been times when other buskers have put money into my guitar case when they've seen that I haven't been making much money that day, or when it's the start of my shift and the end of theirs and they've got enough to spare.
One thing I have noticed is that if you drink whiskey or brandy, it will loosen up your voice so that you can hit higher and lower notes, and your voice will last a bit longer than it would had you not been drinking at all. One convenient replacement I've found is ginger. Chew on a big old stick of ginger, or mix it in with your coffee or tea. They say coffee dries your voice out, and they're probably right, but it doesn't really matter because the upside of coffee outweighs the downside.
Now, I am not recommending this to alcoholics because for some alcoholics they do get triggered, and then one beer turns into 1,000 beers. As they say in the AA circles, one beer is too many and 1,000 never enough. So never touch the first beer. And if seeing other people drinking or being in company of other people drinking triggers you, don't do it. Don't do what I'm doing. But I did have to test the theory for myself to make sure. So I went into a bar the other day and everybody was drinking, of course, and I went up and ordered a delicious cup of tea. There are obviously some rules to busking. Usually you have to vie for a position on the street with other buskers, and we try to keep, our general rule is that we stay out of earshot of the other buskers. It's an honor among spies, you might say, or thieves, or buskers. And also some cities require a license. They have bylaws or ordinances, especially for street performers, because there's a lot of noise pollution potential out there.
You can edit that.
Alright. And howdy, sir. What is your name?
Hi, my name is Matt, also known as the Masked Busker, but today no mask, just a daft lion costume outside the Lion King.
And why is it opposite to have a lion outfit at the moment?
Well, I guess anyone can just busk, and it's nice to have like a costume and stuff like that and stand out from the crowd.
And what's happening behind you in Spark Arena that makes this so appropriate?
The Lion King tonight. So lots of Lion King songs. Hakuna Matata, Circle of Life. What's the other ones? Well, yeah, good fun.
Thank you very much.
No worries at all. No worries.
Have fun out there and make lots of money.
I
subscribe to the theory that you don't rise to the level of your dreams, you fall to the level of your habits. And as far as neutral habits go, taking on the grey man philosophy is a prime example of this. Typically, I will dress as a cowboy, especially when I'm playing music. And the problem is that I dress like a cowboy so often that I dress like a cowboy even when I'm not playing music. And so I've deliberately taken on the baseball cap and the reasonably neutral grey jacket and the whatever colour this is supposed to be. Typical clothes that a typical person would wear. If you saw me walking down the street, you wouldn't remember me. And that's the whole point. Now, I'll explain this soon, but this guy here, his name is Ganesh, and he is a god. And this stuff here is called Sri Ganesh, and it's incense sticks. You can probably read that for yourself. And there's a reason I burn these bad boys. And it's not an obvious reason. Obviously, Stairway to Heaven is banned. So is Tears in Heaven. There are other rules that buskers have for themselves. For example, we will charge extra for songs that are so awfully predictable that we get asked to play them 100 times a day. Songs like Wonderwall by Oasis, that costs a lot of money. We don't just play that song unless we're starving.
I said, baby, God is the one that saves me. And I do
Another thing about a busking set list, it's the same as with any set list, whether you're playing on the street or at a bar or at somebody's 40th or 50th birthday. And that is that you want to change the key for every song you play.
Is that A?
Yeah. Oh. No, it's B, isn't it?
Whoosh.
Oh, what about C? You got C,
I
right?
can do a C.
Okay. Oh, wait, no, I can play A. Because you said you played in G.
Yeah, I do. I play open G.
Okay. Alright.
I play a D and D.
If people are hearing something played in G major for an hour, they will go insane, and they probably won't even realize that it's because they're hearing so many songs in the same key. But you will notice it as a performer. Change the key.
So all of those things that I plan to do would fall under the general umbrella term of habit planning. A habit plan. So that's what I would do basically on a daily basis, things along those lines. I write down what I want to do the next day, and I try my hardest to, within reason, follow that plan, and then review the plan at the end of the day. So that's the habit plan. However, sometimes the habit plan can be replaced by... However, sometimes the habit plan can be brushed aside or main tracked. Now, main tracking is when you have inject a sense of urgency into everything you do. Main tracking is when you brush aside your plans for the day because the A plan has taken over. And by A plan, I mean the higher plan. The higher plan. One reason I think it's relevant to talk about alcohol and busking is because as a musician or any kind of performer, I have found in the past, and a lot of other people have found it the same, that alcohol, a certain amount, will give you the confidence you need to get through a show, at least the first part of a show. So what I am trying to train myself to do is to play music without the help of alcohol or medication or any other drugs. Basically, facing the dragon with a clear mind. And I've noticed that it can be done. Helicopter. Another interesting thing I've thought about is, why is it that a lot of us performers find it easier to be on stage and talk to 100 or 1,000 people. Easier to do that than to talk to one or two people in a private setting. And I think the conclusion I've come to is because you have much more control if you're on stage. You have control of the situation more so than when you're just dealing with one or two people. If you have the microphone, people will pay attention to what you are saying, but when you're paying attention to 1,000 people, they're all chopped up into 1,000 little units of attention that make up one big group of scary looking faces. Whereas if you're dealing with just one or two people, it becomes far more unpredictable. It's basically a compression of anxiety. I haven't worded that properly, but I'll give you the credit with. I think you know what I'm trying to say. And finally, for entirely selfish reasons, I want to learn about other people's hustles, because for a start, it's incredibly interesting to find out how people make the money they make. And I want to have a few different side hustles on the back burner, so long as I can keep reasonably within the confines of legality and good sense, and still maintain a shred of dignity. One thing I like about living a comparatively minimalist life is that you don't have to have an abundance of money to get by. So that gives you a lot of spare time, and especially if you're a bachelor, as I essentially am, and you live by yourself. And I don't eat expensive food. I don't have expensive tastes. I get all my clothes from op shops, which, by the way, are far superior to brand new clothes anyway. So I have a lot of spare time, and that makes for good songwriting material in itself, because I get to fill my mind up with new studies and new hobbies and new pursuits in general. For example, I visit the graveyard down the road, which is a 2-minute walk from where I live, and I get to go and hang out with all the nice dead folks and try to find out a little bit of history about them. It's thoroughly enjoyable and reasonably rewarding hanging out with the pigeons in the graveyard. I will try to take some footage of these escapades, these Poe-esque sallyings forth amid the gibbering, sheeted dead. Okay, so now I'm getting frustrated at my inability to elucidate what I mean by the main tracking. I need to come up with a solid, clear, and precise definition, especially if I'm coining the expression. So there are A plans and B plans, of course. We're all familiar with those. What I mean by main tracking is basically the opposite of side tracking, but not quite. So if you're main tracking, it means that you're going back to what the original plan was anyway. So, for example, if my main goal was to get a show at a bar, and I couldn't get a show at a bar this coming Saturday, but what I could do is I could practice all of the songs that I would play at the show, and I would go to some op shops to get an outfit for the show. But on my way to the op shop to get a new suit, Elvis Presley pulled over in a Cadillac and told me to get in because he wanted me to join his band at the next Louisiana hayride. That would be main tracking because it's cancelling out the sub-plan and putting you back on track to what the original idea was. I hope that's clear enough. It's clear enough in my mind, but maybe I haven't... maybe that hasn't translated well into the reality of trying to explain it. Hopefully it becomes clearer. But it's an expression I'm going to use over and over again until it catches on in a popular culture, and hopefully they'll be able to track it back. To reverse track it back to this video, and they will call it Yull's Law, because I'm going by the name Yull, Y-U-L at the moment, incidentally. There's a story behind that as well. So yeah, main tracking. And there's also... there's main tracking, side tracking, sub tracking, and a whole bunch of other coinage in there, which I'll clarify later on as we go. The one frustrating thing about going to Alcoholics Anonymous circles is that you have to abide by a code of anonymity and confidentiality. So that means that you can't just come home and post on Facebook any entertaining story that you heard, because it might well get back to that person and then they won't welcome you back into the circle anymore. And the reason that's frustrating is because you hear some damn funny stories, and some insightful ones as well. So if I say anything about the story, if I relate any stories I've heard from the AA circles, I will make sure that the names are changed and enough details are changed so that you will never find out who I'm talking about.
There's doctors and lawyers and such. Mama, don't let your babies grow up to be cowboys. 'Cause they never stay home and they're always alone, even with someone they love.
Hello. Okay, so this is the next day. I haven't been out of bed for very long. I got back at about somewhere between 2 and 3 in the morning, and we'd been busking all up for about 4 hours, and we made just over $200, and we were given lots of free tobacco by people, even though we managed to save up enough to buy some of our own. We met a nice gentleman by the name of Simon, who it turns out went to the same school as both of us did. And he is a whiz when it comes to camera technology, so he's going to be teaching me a few tricks of the trade and taking some footage for us. So all up, it was a successful night. We didn't quite do as well as the Lion Man did, but I don't think anybody's ever going to do as well as the Lion Man. I'll catch you next time.
Jungle, mighty jungle, the lion sleeps tonight. In the jungle, the mighty jungle, the lion